Kevin Appleby is the Senior Director of International Migration Policy at independent think tank, the Centre for Migration Studies. He co-wrote a report which details the dramatic increase in the numbers of mostly mothers and children arriving at the US border from Central America. It reminds us that while the conflict rages on in Iraq and Syria, there are 65 million people displaced globally. Kevin Appleby joins me now from New York. Welcome to Late Line.
Thanks for having me.
Help us understand this Central American refugee crisis. Who are these people and what are they fleeing from?
Well, they're very vulnerable populations. It's large numbers of unaccompanied minors who are traveling north and south to get out of the region from gangs and from organized crime, as well as families, mothers with children that are fleeing as well. So they're very vulnerable. It is like a war zone. It's not like a traditional war as we all might think about, but it's gang-infested communities, organized crime, drug cartels that are persecuting all these people, and they have no future and they're in danger. So they're fleeing for safety. The controversial point here is that many say these are just migrants who are coming for a better life, but the facts are that is indeed a refugee flow that's coming out of Central America.
And what sort of conditions are they currently living in Costa Rica?
Well, in Costa Rica, they're in shelters, and there's a program that the United States just announced to transfer emergency cases to Costa Rica that's just getting started. So I think that's what the Prime Minister was referring to. Costa Rica is certainly safer. It's a place where they can be processed and moved on to other countries. So the conditions there are sufficient for them to be there to be processed. But that program's just getting started, actually.
And what was your reaction to the news that Australia will take a cohort of those people?
It was a head-scratcher, really, because, frankly, charity begins at home, and what Australia is doing, it's a noble gesture, but what really it's doing is it's playing into the U.S. hands. The United States has employed a deterrent strategy against Central Americans coming to the U.S., and this reinforces that message that Central Americans are not welcome in the U.S. We're going to send you elsewhere to another part of the world where your families are not there. In fact, the reality is this will increase the incentive for people to just go on their own because they really want to go to the United States or to other parts of the region where their families are, where they have the same culture, etc. Australia is a lovely country and lovely people, but they would be coming to a place they don't know and they have no family ties. So it was a curious announcement, I thought.
So do you have concerns about the impact on those people of being some 10,000 miles away from their homes? Well,
I think certainly, and I think what will happen is many of the Central Americans will not want to do that. They won't. They'll decide not to enter the program if they feel like they're going far, far away. So that might not be true for all of them. Some of them might want to come, but again, their culture and their families are in the region. Certainly, if they decide to come to Australia, they would be fine. But I think the forces that want to remain there with their families and with their culture is what I would think.
And presumably they will have a choice as to whether or not they do take the opportunity to be resettled in Australia.
Well, yes. I mean, they don't necessarily have to go. They can stay in the region if they want to. They're given. You have this opportunity to go to this country, and they don't necessarily have to go if they choose not to. So
our government is adamant that the arrangement with the United States doesn't include a deal for America to take in some sort of a swap deal some of the people on Nauru and Manus Island who have been there under the auspices of the Australian government for now on 3 years or more. Is that even something the American government would entertain, do you think?
Possibly. I mean, let's take a look at what's going on here. The wealthiest nations in the world are deploying these externalization policies where they're they're keeping people, they're deterring people from coming to their territories, Australia, the United States, the European Union. What such a quid pro quo would do, it would reinforce those policies, because it would be saying, we're going to take your people that you don't want, and you take our people that that we don't want, and the message is reinforced that these people in our region are not welcome to our country. And as I said, the primary responsibility is to take care of refugees in your region that are right there at your doorstep, not to sort of shift the responsibility elsewhere. So I think it's a model that is not sustainable, and really what it's doing is it's reinforcing a policy that denies protection to thousands and thousands of people in their regions.
How is the situation for the people in the refugees in Central America likely to change should after the presidential election, particularly should Donald Trump win? Well,
Donald Trump has said certainly that he's going to build a wall on the Mexican border. He would probably take steps to certainly block off any routes that Central American refugees could come to. But the solution here is not building walls, etc. It's looking at the root causes. And one of the things that I think was missing yesterday at the refugee summit at the UN was not much discussion of how do we solve the problems that are pushing people to flee, the wars, the conflict, the non-governmental actors that are causing problems around the world. That's what we need to focus on, and focus on development as well, so that people, migrate by choice, not necessity. And that really is the long-term answer here.
Is there a bipartisan approach in the United States to the number of Central American refugees that you will actually settle within the country?
Well, it's a divisive issue, just like it is anywhere else. I think the sweet spot, if you will, would be a combination of enforcing the immigration laws, but also setting up a regional protection system where refugees could be processed either in the region and be resettled to different parts of the region and to the United States. And also at the U.S. border, that people have a real chance for asylum. Children have a chance for protection, and families have a chance for protection. That would require, eliminating family detention, which is really a stain on the Obama's administration, and other sort of deterrence tactics that are being used right now.
And just briefly,
so more protection, less enforcement.
And just briefly, what are the numbers we're talking about of people fleeing those regions?
Right. Over the last 3 years, there's been about 330,000 Central American refugees arriving at the U.S. border, and that is evenly split between families and unaccompanied minors. And this is not a lot compared to maybe Syria, but it is unprecedented in terms of refugees arriving at the U.S. border. So it is a significant flow, and that doesn't include the numbers that may not have made it, that Mexico certainly has stepped up their deportations with U.S. Financial assistance. So the number is much higher than 320,000 that have arrived in the U.S. I would say as many as 750,000 or more have left the region. And we also see about 2.3 million in the region are displaced from their homes because of this violence in their communities. So it's really a refugee humanitarian crisis that we're experiencing.
Kevin Appleby, appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you.